All right, today we are diving into one of the most incredible matchmaking stories ever told. Seriously, it's this epic quest from the book of Genesis about a loyal, unnamed servant, a promise he just had to keep, and a journey across the desert to find the perfect wife for his master's son, Isaac. It really starts with a question that everybody, at some point, has probably asked: how do you find the one? It's a timeless question, right? And whether it's now or thousands of years ago, it seems to come down to the same things: shared values, a real connection, and, as we're about to see, maybe a little bit of faith. But for this one servant we're talking about, this wasn't just some hypothetical question. This was his life's mission, the ultimate test, a sacred duty that was handed to him by his master, Abraham. So, where does this whole thing begin? Well, it's not with a romance or some chance meeting. It starts with an ancient promise, a father's solemn oath that kicks this entire incredible quest into motion. Okay, so picture this. Abraham is old. He's the patriarch of this great lineage, and he knows he doesn't have much time left. So what's his number one priority? Securing the future of his family line through his son Isaac. And to pull this off, he turns to the one person he trusts most in the world, his servant. And listen, this was not a casual request. This was a big deal. Abraham makes his servant swear a powerful oath to God, saying, "Thou shalt not take a wife unto my son of the daughters of the Canaanites, but thou shalt go unto my country and to my kindred." The instructions are crystal clear. A wife from any of the local Canaanite tribes? Absolutely forbidden. The mission, the only option, was to make the long journey all the way back to Abraham's homeland in Mesopotamia. And this wasn't about location. It was about preserving their specific culture and their faith. And this was a serious expedition. I mean, the servant takes 10 camels, and they're loaded up with the best, most valuable gifts from his master. This wasn't just a trip, it was basically a diplomatic convoy designed to show the immense wealth and seriousness of Abraham's household. So the servant finally arrives in Mesopotamia, but now he's got a huge problem. How in the world is he supposed to find the one right woman in a city full of strangers? Well, his solution is absolutely brilliant, and it all goes down in a moment we now call the test at the well. So after that super long journey, he gets to a well just outside the city. And instead of looking around for the most beautiful woman, he comes up with this genius test. It's a test of character, and he basically asks God for a very, very specific sign. The test he comes up with is so smart because it has two parts. The first part is easy, just basic politeness. She has to offer him a drink. But the real sign, the thing that would prove she's the one, is the second part. She has to, without being asked, offer to water all 10 of his camels. And just to give you a little perspective, one thirsty camel can drink over 30 gallons of water. So this wasn't just a kind gesture. It was an act of incredible, difficult labor. And here's where things get wild. The text says that before the servant even finished praying, this young woman named Rebecca shows up. He asks her for a drink, and she immediately says, "Drink, my lord." Okay, so part one of the test is complete. But then she does something amazing. She says, "I'll get water for your camels too," until they've had enough to drink. And she eagerly runs back and forth, filling the trough again and again, completing the second, much, much harder part of the test. This is it. This is the sign. The servant is just stunned. He can't believe it. As soon as the camels are done drinking, he gives Rebecca these incredible gifts: a golden earring and 2 bracelets. Then he asks the million-dollar question, "Whose daughter are you?" And when he finds out she's the granddaughter of Abraham's own brother, he just knows. He bows his head and worships because his prayer was answered in the most specific way imaginable. So finding Rebecca was a miracle, no doubt. But the mission wasn't over yet, not even close. Now came the next challenge. He had to convince her family to let her leave her home forever. This is where we see the power of a family's blessing. So he gets invited into her home, and before he even takes a bite of food, he lays out his case. And it's a masterclass in persuasion. First, he establishes that his master is incredibly wealthy. Second, he explains the sacred oath. And third, and this is the masterstroke, he tells them the entire story of the test at the well, framing the whole thing as a divinely guided event. Then he puts it to them directly. And you might expect them to hesitate, but their response is immediate. Her father and her brother say, "This thing comes from the Lord. We can't say anything to you, good or bad." Here is Rebecca, "Take her and go." They completely saw the hand of God in all of this, just as clearly as the servant did. But hold on, there's one last little hurdle. The next morning, the servant is ready to go, but the family asks him to wait, maybe 10 days or so. He insists that his mission is urgent, so what do? They decide to let Rebecca make the final call. So everything now rests on her decision. Can you imagine the pressure? Leave your home, your family, everything you've ever known to go with this stranger to a land you've never seen. They call her in and ask her, "Will you go with this man?" Her answer is just 2 words, but they are simple, powerful, and decisive. "I will go." And with that single, powerful answer, the servant's mission is a success. All that's left now is the journey home, and the moment we've all been waiting for, the fated meeting between Isaac and Rebecca. So the final part of the journey begins. Rebecca and her maids leave with her family's blessing. As their caravan gets close to home, Isaac is actually out meditating in a field in the evening. In this really beautiful, quiet moment, Rebecca looks up and sees him from a distance. She gets down from her camel and covers herself with a veil, which was a traditional sign of modesty and respect for their very first meeting. And the story ends with this incredibly powerful and emotional line. "And she became his wife, and he loved her. And Isaac was comforted after his mother's death." The quest is finally over. And it brought not just a wife for Isaac, but comfort, healing, and love. I mean, if you look up the definition of a quest, this story is it. A long, difficult search for something absolutely vital. So what made this whole thing work? It was this amazing combination of things, right? There was deep faith in a divine plan, for sure. But there was also a really clever human strategy of the well, and of course the unwavering loyalty of a servant who pulled off one of the greatest matchmaking missions in history. And that kind of leaves us with one final thought. What can this ancient story teach us about our own lives? It's a fascinating look at how divine signs and very human choices can work together. And it makes you wonder, doesn't it, about the roles that fate, faith, and our own decisive actions play in shaping our own stories.